All right, let's get to the shout out, gentlemen. Although, of course, anytime you talk about Cornel West, it's basically a shout out.
I'm looking for a remix. And now the shout out.
Shout out. Shout out.
Valuable
Shout out.
shout out.
Shout out.
The pile of ideas was turned to low. It's quickly moving into the hot position.
And now the shout out.
Shout out.
Pause the video.
Shout out. Shout out.
Recovery mode.
Shout
My
out.
brain is
Shout out. Shout out.
Geopolitical politics.
Shout out.
Competition would start kicking in.
Shout out.
I'm not funded by the Koch brothers.
Shout out.
Do some research for yourself.
Shout out. Shout out. Shout out. Shout out. Shout out. Shout out.
That's amazing. The shout out, and maybe we should just do an every week a shout out until the end of this campaign.
This is now a Bernie segment.
This is now the shout out is now the Bernie segment. Shout out to Bernie Sanders, the candidate to vote for if you really want to take on some things.
If you're not wasting your time
if
right
you're not
now.
wasting your time, Bernie Sanders. You know, foreign policy is not only inseparable from domestic policy. It's also, as Daniel Bessner always emphasizes, and for some very bad reasons, by the way, is the area that a president has the most immediate power over. The fact that every single other Democratic candidate in the lead is, at the end of the day, recapitulating and restating some form of warmed-over Obamaism and Clintonism. Sure, it will be a significant improvement over Trump, but that bar is low as hell. And we need a foreign policy that has some understanding of solidarity, some understanding that we need to stop constant war, significantly cut the military-industrial complex, and have an honest approach, even if it is not as radical as people with broader critiques. I'm sure my position on Israel-Palestine is to the left of Sanders. That being said, even just a moderate and clear recognition of Palestinian humanity, you're not hearing in any substantive and consistent way from any other candidate. Although some, like Beto O'Rourke, will be willing to state the obvious that Benjamin Netanyahu is, of course, a racist. But consistently, and Peter Beinart himself noted this on Mehdi Hassan's show recently, Bernie is the one who is willing to go to organizations and question the broader policy. Elizabeth Warren's never been willing to do that. Kamala Harris and Cory Booker are to the far extreme right on this position, as is, of course, the ever-odious Joe Biden.
And just a note on Beto's, because Beto has said some good things about Netanyahu being, a racist or whatever he said, right? But the thing is how tepid that is I remember before I even worked at Majority Report when Netanyahu came and spoke in front of the GOP House, and even the House Democrats at that point were able to get their shit together.
Except for Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard went. And that was when the Republicans brought Netanyahu there to actively undermine Obama's Iran deal. And Democrats, including people like Tim Kaine, didn't go. Tulsi went. So again, I would note that.
Speaking of wasting your time.
Speaking of wasting your time, word. And we'll also talk about that anti-free speech, anti-democracy BDS vote in the postgame. This is Bernie Sanders on Crooked Media stating the absolute bare minimum obvious, but one that is incredibly politically courageous, and you will not hear from any other candidate.
You've been very critical of Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government. We spend a few $1 billion on aid to Israel. Would you ever consider using that aid as leverage to get the Israeli government to act differently?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we are giving large sums of money. Look, let me back it up before the tweets start flowing in. I lived in Israel.
Yeah.
Actually, I worked in a kibbutz for a number.
I was just going to say, it's interesting how nervous Favreau is. Like, that laughter he gave there, you can tell, like, even this question is a bit much for him to ask.
Incredible. The utter neurosis about just having an honest conversation about this, including with somebody who, another thing, just really briefly, Beinart and Hassan noted, is that you will see, because of this moderate, humane position, some right-wing Jewish groups will try to defeat the first possible Jewish president of the United States because he recognizes Palestinians are human beings. That's how utterly distorted this conversation is. But go ahead.
Flowing in. I lived in Israel.
Yeah.
Actually, I worked in a kibbutz for a number of months. I have family in Israel. I am Jewish. I am not anti-Israel. Okay, I believe that the people of Israel have absolutely the right to live in peace, independence, and security. End of discussion. That is what I fervently believe. But I think what has happened is, in recent years under Netanyahu, you have an extreme right-wing government with many racist tendencies. The role of the United States, and this is not easy, I believe me, Clinton tried it, Obama tried it, Jimmy Carter tried it. This is not easy stuff, is to try to finally bring peace to the Middle East and to treat the Palestinian people with the kind of respect and dignity they deserve. Our policy cannot just be pro-Israel, pro-Israel, pro-Israel. It has got to be pro-region, working with all of the people, all of the countries in that area.
That basic step, again, from a left perspective that recognizes that, of course, Israel's an apartheid state. And of course, the policies in Gaza and the West Bank are monstrous. And of course, they've cost many Palestinian lives. And of course, they're analogous to Jim Crow and everything else. But the reality of our politics, and also in the vein of Cornel West, I would suggest and I would argue that the first starting point of an assertion that we are going to have a human conversation that recognizes Israeli and Palestinian humanity is a radical shift that you will not see from any other candidate. So shout out to Bernie Sanders. He is the choice. We have an absolutely unique opportunity here. It's not just that he's the leftist, most left on foreign policy, on domestic policy. He's reset the entire terrain on domestic policy. And now he's leading point on foreign policy.
Yeah, when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard or Elizabeth Warren, here's what you need to do.
It needs to be simple. Keep it simple.
Thank you.
Shut up with that stuff, guys.
Exactly. And certainly with us, because we don't have any time for any nonsense. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.